Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Rise and Play. And today I have for the third time Ioana with me, following the whole journey of Rise and Play and as women in leadership roles, executives, founding companies, fundraising. We had an episode with Ioana, so check our show notes on fundraising, managing yourself as a CEO, which you and I had also shared in the previous episode. So we've been on a journey together and we've known each other for, I think, a bit more than 3 years. So as old as Rise and Play. So 3 to 4 years, connecting mostly through this work, but connecting even more through the journey of Orin also today. We don't know what we'll reveal, but many things that we wanted to share with the audience is more reflection journey as an entrepreneur, founder, executives, the whole transition of it. Maybe sharing some bits of topics that why even we had to find our space with Orin and what have we learned from that. I wanted to give you a space to share where you're at today, maybe what you were doing a bit before, what brings you here.
Hey everyone, I'm Ioana, right now a co-founder of Runware, an AI as a service startup, a very classical VC-funded startup in the AI space. Before that, I was the chief product officer of Huge Games and the GM of a huge casino studio. So very different stage and size of business and kind of large legendary gaming business. Before that, chief product officer of Homa Games, gaming scale up with incredible reach. And before that, CEO of Game Analytics, the largest, most popular platform for analytics and mobile games.
So really an amazing credential, big roles, different companies, different contexts. We talked about that. And also quite similar challenges from, a role to another, but also evolving with times and, leadership also in organizations. So I wanted to start maybe some reflection on from being employed, which is the reality of many people these days, to founding, your own company, becoming an entrepreneur, your whole journey basically with your company right now, and how you went through the journey. I'm saying that because also for many right now, they are pushed out through to the door to build their own business. And it's not fun when you haven't planned for it.
So I think one of the most important things you can do when you are employed is if you think you'll ever need to start a business is potentially try to find a co-founder. Now, this depends. If you just want to do a consulting business or like a business that is based on you, you don't need this. But if you want to do like a business, I cannot stress enough how necessary it is in reality to have a co-founder for mental reasons, like psychological reasons, scaling reasons, everything. But for me, the reason I'm mentioning that is I was in my role. So I was in my role at Homa and AI had kind of happened. It was starting. It was very early though. And my co-founder built this prototype on the side. So he had left his role. He wanted to do something in AI. We had worked together at Game Analytics and before that in a few companies. So at this point, I had known him for over 10 years. He always he was more the founder type. So he really wanted to do something. He was looking for that opportunity. And when AI happened, he really felt like this is like, I just need to do something. So he created a prototype of an image generator. At the time, it was called PicFinder. The whole concept was to make image generation real time, make it as fast as image search. It got featured by a YouTuber, went incredibly viral. At this time, we had no plan. It was not monetized. It was just a kind of this very smart toy that he had created, but the traction was incredible. And I applied to Speedrun. I was bootstrapping, so I was involved, but I had a role. So I was very focused on my full-time job, but I was like paying for the GPUs, for the servers and so on more and more, by the way. It was starting to get very stressful. And we applied to Speedrun. This was the first iteration of Speedrun, the gaming accelerator at the time, now a media entertainment accelerator as well, with the Andreessen Horowitz team. And I just got a call. And the call was actually, we're thinking of also funding you. It's not going to be a part-time program. We want you to be in San Francisco. And, getting a call from Andreessen is first of all, like bucket list stuff for any founder. So first of all, I was like, but secondly, I hadn't expected this because they're like, we will invest $500,000 if you show up in San Francisco in a week and then you're here and work from here for 2 months. I had this call to make And I remember I got the actual offer. I had done the interview and so on. I got the offer before I went into this light exhibit. So I was in London and there was this event that I was going to that was basically a light exhibit with like lasers, all this stuff. So, and I remember walking through this tunnel of light and really feeling, oh my God, my life has changed. And like feeling this pressure of I have a great role, I like my role, I'm in a scale up, but how often does this happen? Like how often does Andreessen call you and says, we'll give you $1 million, come to San Francisco? Called my boss, the founder of Homa, and kind of appealed to his, hey, you're a founder too. I hope you understand why I feel like I have to do this. I don't think he liked it, but I think he understood. So we agreed that I would go and pursue this opportunity. I went to San Francisco, did the whole thing. So it kind of happened because I had all the right ingredients, the planets aligned. It wasn't like I went, I am going to quit my job and go do a startup. It's like we started this thing on the side. The right timing came, the right opportunity came. My CV was strong and allowed me to get considered for an accelerator. So that's when like all of the things aligned. But this was kind of, if you think about it, kind of a 10-year thing that just happened. It's like a graduation of a 10-year effort. It wasn't like it's luck, but it's luck with a lot of homework.
Mm-hmm. And I do know the process from other founders that is quite intense to join the program and even to apply. Is it like the speed run interview, like 1 minute or 2 minute call? I forgot. Like rapid fire questions, right?
Yeah, it's 15 minutes of probably like 20, 30 questions. Yeah. The team asking the questions really know what they're talking about. I do coaching now for speedrun founders. I know the team very well that does the acceptance. I've helped other startups to get into speedrun. I love helping European founders in particular get into speedrun because European founders have fewer opportunities. I am happy to support anybody who is going through the process.
Yeah. And I remember at the time when I was considering applying, we had that conversation and I was shocked and impressed at the same time. It's like, wow, this is really intense. But even receiving the call going a week after, changing your life, it requires a certain level of flexibility, I have to say. I do know also the sequence of events that happen later. And without getting in the detail here, I'm more curious about, okay, you have a founder t-shirt, you know, the journey, because there was a wave in 2021 where everybody was wearing the founder t-shirt, raising, bootstrapping, seed, and building something. Many also transitioned from being employed to also being a founder. How does that change you? The reality check, because there's always, you know, we think it's a career ladder. I've seen many treating it like this. My next step is going to be a founder for my career progression. And I don't think it's on the same line. So what are the learnings you would say to people who are thinking going there or already there from your own journey?
So I would say, I think people really glamorize being a founder and especially being a VC funded startup. And don't get me wrong, it's great to have money in the bank. Like for me, especially like I'm somebody with a lot of financial anxiety, it would be very hard for me to do this if I didn't believe that I could pay myself, pay my mortgage and so on, because I come from a very, very modest background. I don't have a safety net. Like if I don't pay my bills, nobody's paying my bills. So for me, that was very important. But I think there's a really marked difference between 2020, 2021 founders, which is like money was pouring into VCs. You could leave a large company with two of your mates and like get 5 million and do a startup, versus the fact that then after COVID, there was like this decline in gaming and in tech, capital dried up. And there were these like AI, for instance, was getting investment, but it's like the Facebook VPs were getting investment for leaving Facebook, you know, like they were getting 100 million, and a lot of the small companies weren't necessarily getting a lot of money. So if you were not like super established, it was actually still very hard to get funding. I feel like it created a probably more resilient, more bootstrappy generation of founders where, first of all, it was hard to get money. So you had to get good at fundraising. 2, you would get less money. So you had to do more with less. And 3, the market was very competitive. Like everybody and their mother wanted to do AI. So you had all these incredible people, super smart, going into this field, like giving it their all. And you're trying to compete with like 100 companies, all trying to figure it out, all doing a lot with little. So I feel like surviving that wave and thriving in that wave was kind of different. I will say the demand is also there. So you're on the wave. The wave is like, you know, rising tide lifts all boats. So you are at the right time in the market. At least you have that in your favor. That matters immensely. but certainly you're running in a very crowded race. Yeah, I think it changed. I think there's a very different type of founder that succeeded in the second part versus in the first part. And if you look now at the statistics, a lot of those 2021 startups have some of the highest failure rates. Well, a lot of them closed, didn't manage to get follow-on funding because, and by the way, I don't think these teams did anything bad. It's just the ground shifted under them. They raised a lot of money, spent it because that's what you did. Money was plentiful. And then they ran out of money at a time when there was no capital. And all this, the industry also changed. So you built this thing that isn't relevant anymore. You spent all your money and now nobody wants to give you money anymore. So it's not like that must have been heartbreaking because you did everything right only to not get the result you wanted. But I also feel like it was a great time to side hustle again. So for my co-founder, he built this side project that just kind of worked out. I think a lot of people just tried an idea they had and it kind of worked out. So it was a great time to just be creative, do something, even if you were like a solo person, and then try to turn that into a business. So yeah, I think it's been a time for doers, for people who can do a lot with little. But again, I just want to say that a lot of the founder journey in these situations is also misery. Like you're fundraising, you're getting more than 10 no's for every one yes. You can get 30 no's for every one yes. Like it's hard. It's more brutal than the dating apps. It's really, really hard. So you want to be your own boss. You want to have money in the bank. You want to build what you want to build, but it takes a lot of rejection and a lot of resilience to get there. When you wake up on the third week of getting only no's every day and you think like something is wrong with you and you don't know what you're doing, it's a lot harder to keep that motivation and that feeling that, oh yeah, it's okay. My boss was difficult too, you know?
What helped you to keep going?
So for one, I think something for me was just sheer refusal to accept failure. I was so like, oh my God, I left my job, which was a great job with people I liked to do this. And I am in front of these fantastic people like the E16Z team who are rooting for me and trying to help me. It's like, I can't fail. Like I need to find a way to make this work. So I was just singularly obsessed with I cannot fail at this. I have to do it. So, and not a healthy mental space, by the way, not great for my mental health, but this kind of refusal to give up because we initially weren't able to fundraise after we left the accelerator, and then we pivoted and then we successfully fundraised. So again, like got a lot of no's, didn't like basically failed, and then went back and went like, okay, what happened? Why are we failing? What is going on? Just based on feedback we received, went back into the market, kind of better, learned to pitch better, listened more, followed the market better. And then finally we managed to again hit a stride. At some point it was like, we're telling the right story at the right time to the right people. But a lot of getting there was getting rejected by a bunch of people, telling the wrong story, figuring out what our story was in the first place. But yeah, it was just this kind of almost desperate inability to accept failure. Like I have to make this work.
Yeah, you talked about the mental toll and very much aware of that as I work also with founders in that phase. We know now, looking back in the past future, that also you decided to not continue after, I think, fundraising. So I wonder what were the realization for you that led also, again, we don't need to go in detail, but more personal journey, that this is not the journey you wanted to continue, at least at that phase. And then you came back and we will return to this, but yeah, for that decision particularly.
Yeah, so I mentioned we pivoted, like we couldn't fundraise and then we pivoted and then we did fundraise. And the business was going much more in this infrastructure direction, which is a lot of my experience and my background. It's something I'm very good at, but it's not necessarily where my main love is. Like I love gaming. I'm a gamer. I love making games. So there's this moment where it's like, I thought that when I finally get the check signed, finally the money's in the bank, I'd feel like finally I did it. This was all worth it. And this all happened, and I frankly just didn't feel that way. I just felt, first of all, drained. I felt like my life had gotten very small, like nothing was bringing me joy or misery, like everything was just kind of flat. I felt like I hadn't probably really had any deep emotion in months. I'm just kind of this very useful machine. I do everything I have to do and I do it well. And I wake up in the morning and no matter how I feel, I do what I'm supposed to do. But that kind of has shrunk my emotional life to a point where I was like more chatbot than person. And, and I started to realize, I started to research this, why I feel like this. And this state is called anhedonia. So it's basically chronic depression. It's the beginning of chronic depression. If you have the state for 2 years, you are diagnosed with chronic depression. And that for the first time made me realize, because I could get out of bed. I was exercising. I was doing all of the things. Like for all intents and purposes, I looked like a healthy person, except I didn't feel anything anymore. So I was kind of disconnected, like mentally disconnected from my emotions. And then I started to realize that I'm not going in a good direction. If I keep doing this, I am going to go to a place where I am not going to mentally be able to handle this. So I need to take a step back. I need to kind of do things where I also actually enjoy my life and not just pursue this out of ambition and so on. I also felt like the business was in a good place. The business was kind of really designed around my co-founder. He was the vision behind the business. Like the business was what we had told investors and so on. It was like, this is the business. This is what we're going to do. These are the clients. So like basically everything was there. But the founding team is also very important at pre-seed. So I decided I want to go back to gaming. I want to work with something that is more aligned with me personally. Investors did not take it well at all. It was very, very hard conversations. They're very clear, like when you invest in pre-seed, you invest in the founding team. And I understood their frustration, but I also felt, so I had this like, they're right. I did this. I was part of this. But at the same time, I can't wait and do this and just kind of wait to slowly descend into depression and misery. Fortunately, my co-founder understood. He was not happy about it, but he understood. He knew also a lot more of the toll that this had taken on me. He had appreciated that I did all the fundraising because there was a moment where he was like, not sure this is going to work. So just succeeding at it made him believe, wow, it's possible we can do this. So he really appreciated the work that I had put in and had seen the toll it took on me. So he wasn't like mad at me for wanting to also have like I don't know if a good life is the right word, but to feel more whole in a way. I took a step back, went back into gaming. That did re-energize me. It really worked. I love my next role. I got to run a huge casino studio. It was a fantastic opportunity. Biggest team I'd ever run, 270 people, legendary studio, completely new industry. It was fantastic to even get this opportunity. A lot of hard things, but loved my time there, loved running the studio. So that really reminded me of who I was. It really brought back a sense of passion and energy into me as a person.
Well, thank you for sharing the journey and to reflect on a very important point. Well, you chose yourself, your salvation, in a way, in a point where that was very critical because, again, I'm very aware dealing with some founders not in a great place and a very irreversible effect. And I don't have any answer on how to grow companies fast pace and not costing it the lives of real human lives, plus the whole system around them. But it's for awareness that, everyone makes the choice and you made a choice being quite aware of the direction where you were going and choosing you. And even the company keeps going, right? So there's versions of stories where you can also save yourself and rearrange it in the way that the company can run sustainably and not at the cost of an individual. And it should never. So it's an important reminder.
Yeah, I think for what it's worth, I really tried to leave the company in a good place. And I know that but I felt like, look, the company has money in the bank. But the fact that I'm leaving right after the round seems like it's a shock. But at the same time, there's time to find, for instance, a new executive in time for the next round to have them onboarded and so on. So in my mind, it was like, there's not going to be a great time to do this. It's better to do it now that the company is freshly funded, can follow its vision, can bring a new team, than to kind of drag this out, not perform at my best, and do it maybe 6 months to a year later when we have less runway and so on. It's like, it's very attractive now for anybody to join and kind of fill this gap. So for what it's worth, in my mind, it was like, there's never going to be a good time to do this, never. But out of all the bad times, this is probably the best one. I stayed on as an advisor. I helped with everything I needed to help. And then I actually came back when we raised the next round, and there was a lot to do for my co-founder, and he needed all the support. And I was in a good place to step back from my role, and the company kind of really needed the support. And I stepped in, and it's gone very well since, because it's at a different stage where my skills are a lot more used.
Yeah, not in the shaky state at the beginning, which is getting off the ground. And I wanted to touch on also something in parallel that happened in your process, because to coming back to the startup you founded, when I look at your CV, just purely your CV without talking to you, you've had all the roles, most of the roles that one could wish for. You touch on different skills, responsibilities. You've founded a company. And then what now, right? Fair question. What was the cost of it? Was it all worth it? And then how, based on what I'm learning, what I've learned, how do I want to approach the second phase or third phase of my life? Because we are all in midlife phase. And you joined Orin. I was curious because now it's been more than 9 months, a lot of time to integrate. Where were you at that time when you joined? The question you wanted to answer, how have you answered them? Where are you now? More on the inner journey.
Yes, this is a great question, because I think, and people told me, I remember I was interviewing people for roles, and I had a candidate that I stayed on good terms with. He refused the role, but we stayed on good terms. He asked me, how did you build this career? Like, you had a very fast career growth. And I tried to explain, he had rejected the role because it required like 50% travel. And I was like, well, I took the jobs, man. I am doing 50% travel. And before this role where I'm doing 50% travel, I was doing about 40% travel for my previous one. And like how I got to London is by doing 50% travel. I took the opportunities, even if they weren't the perfect opportunity and they required a lot of personal sacrifice, because I just had like this plan. I had a vision of who I wanted to be. You know, I was initially in Romania working in tech, always feeling like the world is out there and I am not. Like, the best people in the world are in London, they're in San Francisco, they are not in Bucharest. And no shade to Bucharest, it's a great town, but that's how I felt at the time. So I really had this ambition, like, I want to be with the best people in the world. I can do this. And I don't know how to tell you where this ambition came from. I literally grew up in a village in a small town. It was there. It was in me somehow. So then I worked extremely hard to make these choices and these opportunities. When I left infrastructure, I wanted to get into gaming. I managed to get into gaming by building good relationships with people. The CEO of Game Analytics that brought me in was a former client from my infrastructure days. Daniel at Homa was a client of Game Analytics. So they knew me when they hired me. Huge games. I had met them before through like a strategic process. So like these people hired me because they had met me and they specifically wanted to hire me. And I always had this sense that I have to always do the most. Of course, the most is also balance. It's like you have to do the most in the right way. And then I got these jobs, right? I got these opportunities. I got these jobs. And what happens is you really get to the top of the pyramid, so to speak. It's not like I was C-level at Google or anything, but these were profitable, successful businesses in gaming. I was in C-level. And you really start to see that there is no end. And also, the closer you get to the top, things kind of get inverted in that as you're growing in your early career, it's about performance and values and alignment. And when you get to the top, it's very much about personal chemistry, personal loyalty. And, you know, I can do all of these things. It's not like I'm actually pretty good at them. But I am not somebody, I feel good doing work, excelling at my work. I feel good driving results. I do not feel good throwing people under the bus so I look better. I do not feel good throwing somebody under the bus because somebody else who's important is mad at them for some reason. I will jump in front of somebody who's being thrown under the bus if I think it's the right thing to do. And sometimes these are bad decisions in these environments, in a high stakes C-level environment. And there's a lot of times when I thought, is it really worth it? Should I be doing these things? But there's a point where you have to go, why am I here though? Like I'm it's good money. It's a lot of influence. I love my job. But I also need to feel like I'm not sacrificing every personal value I have, and I am not sacrificing the humanity of people around me just for me to be in this seat. So you get there and you realize, like, I am not sure that this is really the environment for me. I'm good at it and I can do everything it requires, but it's very personally challenging. It's much more morally challenging than it is actually work challenging. It's a very different type of challenge. And many times, again, you think a startup is the solution to this, and it can be. But a startup has its own other kinds of challenges. So basically, you can work yourself up the ladder to a level where everything is hard. You're like, instead of feeling like, wow, I'm here and I have all these options, the outcome is you can feel kind of trapped. And like for a while, I was like, you know what? Director level is the best level. You have a team, you have impact, you have influence. You don't have to deal with a lot of this stuff. Whenever people were like, how do I progress and be like you? I was like, maybe don't. I'm not sure if I was doing this again, that I would necessarily try so hard to be here. I would maybe stick around at like a, top level leadership, but not quite C-level and so on for a while. It's a good place to be. I was like, okay, now that I made it to the top of the ladder, what's next? Like, if I don't necessarily feel aligned here, and I did the founder thing, and I also think that is particularly challenging, what's next? And I felt actually really, really lost. And that's where Oren came in, like trying to answer this question.
Yes, to give context for listeners, we were a group of selected, curated women who came together in this constellation in January, initially 10, and all C-level executive founders with quite a lot of commonalities, but very different. Some of you didn't know each other. And we get to learn to know each other on a deeper level. And as you shared, what's behind the mask was really happening in the background and where we could connect. And so what was the process for you through that journey of some realization where you made different choice, like now, reflecting even now where you are between this balance of morality, career, personal?
So I think one of the first very pleasant surprises with Oren is that I'm somebody who's very pragmatic. I'm not into astrology. I'm not a crystal girly. I believe there is some sense of spirituality and I appreciate that. But I am very grounded and I like to keep things very grounded. What I loved about Oren is there was this extremely strong human component and the sense that ultimately people want to find meaning and want their lives to be meaningful and want to have personal alignment. But we are all in important jobs doing very real things with kind of managing very real situations. So I felt like there was probably the best degree of understanding that I've ever felt. Because again, my friends, partner, no matter how much they want to support you, they don't have the exact experience you have versus like these women, some of them had the exact experience I was having just in another company. So it was on one hand validating. On the other hand, I felt the same, like I brought a lot of value to them. So it gave me a lot of meaning to support these people in the way that I wanted to be supported and to get the support back. And I felt like it was instantly honest, vulnerable. I mentioned this in another testimonial I did for Oren, but the fact that we had NDAs, the fact that it was all properly done to be a trusted circle where you could share things, but you could talk about your personal challenges through that context and still have a high degree of trust. So that was very useful. I think secondly, it really helped me to validate how much of this is me versus how much of this is the environment. You sometimes just need reflections to be like, am I doing this wrong? Or what am I doing wrong versus I can expect this to happen in other places. So I need to either accept it or not be in these places. So it gave me a lot of external validation and kind of set the stage for decision making. But additionally, having the program run for a few months, I went through a lot of stages for these months. So initially, again, I went through like stages of grief. I was very angry that I did all this work to get here and now I'm in the situation. Then I was a bit like, what if everything is like this? What do I do? So I went through all of the emotional stages and managed to then find the sense of, if this exists, other things like this must exist. There are good people. There are people that are aligned with what I believe in. So to kind of also find hope through the program. By the way, I feel like a lot of what I say comes across as like I'm talking about the difficult moments, and I'm actually quite an energetic kind of cautiously optimistic person. Like my personality is cautious optimist. So I just want to say that I'm speaking about the dark times because they're not spoken about enough, not because I only like think of the. I am Eastern European and we do that a lot. I think in my case, I also have a lot of energy and see a lot of good things. It's just, it's the hard things that you struggle with, right?
And where are you now in your life?
So for the program, it's interesting. I started the program wondering what am I going to do with my career? And that change actually came pretty naturally when it just took its course. I decided to leave my role due to wanting different things for the future. Also, after being very proud of what I've done, I made a big impact on my role. I like my team. I built a great team. I would work with them again. They're fantastic people. I was lucky to have this opportunity and make this impact on the business. But it did become obvious that we see the future in different ways and that instead of forcing it, it's better to, at a good time, just call it. And then I had this moment when I just frankly wanted to take some time off and kind of take the time to process these. I've been working for more than 20 years, have never had time off. I've had 2 weeks of holiday. I've never had 3 months off since I was like 19. So I really felt that I'm not going to get to be in my 40s without having taken the time to reflect on what I want. So initially I wanted to do that. But at the same time, my startup was fundraising, going for accelerated growth, needed a lot of support. I had time all of a sudden. So I started to get hands-on and help. And initially I had this very mental challenge of like, I'm doing this program to help me find what I'm supposed to do next. But the way that worked out is I really used what I learned in the program to not jump in headfirst as I would have normally done, but really almost curate the things I was doing. So not do the things that were completely draining my energy. So make a conscious decision of if I do these specific things in a year, I will be burnt out. So I need to find solutions for these things now. I'm going to have people doing these things. I'm going to coordinate these people. I'm not going to, again, make the same mistake I made last time, basically. So using what I learned for the program, I kind of did this a bit of work and life design. It sounds very like fluffy, but basically I decided to purposefully make decisions at the start and not just give it my all and do the most like I usually did, and instead curate how I wanted my work and my life to look like. So I have some things that always give me energy and I'm able to sustain this moving forward. So, there were some carve outs that I discussed with my co-founder. I was very lucky to have incredibly supportive investors. So of the investors that stayed with the business and specifically the A16Z team, they were just fantastic. They made me feel so understood and welcome and like I could join the business anytime. We can do a side note at some point about the differences in how European investors treat you versus US investors, but I have nothing but good things to say about them. They made me feel like a real person and like a superstar all at once. And like they had my back all the way. So that gave me a lot of confidence because I was concerned before I burned a lot of bridges. So it gave me the confidence to come in and feel like I am bringing value. People do believe in me. I should be here, even if I've done this entire weird journey. And this time, if I come back, I'm going to do it in a way where I don't have to leave again. So with Oren, I kind of really processed what's important to me, what I want. And don't get me wrong, you're still a founder. You're supposed to do like 100 things you don't want to do. But within those 100 things, there's 5 that probably really drain you. And probably those 5 you can have somebody else do. And that's kind of, I've been much more purposeful about. I don't need to do everything. I can say no to some things to make myself run 5 marathons in a row, which is what a startup is,
Well, beautiful. That's an amazing also, retrospective on how you applied it to the business, because that's the whole point with Oren is the journey of each participant individual with your question and for clarity, right? Clarity and then conscious choice. Because when you are in the state just running, which is the state of many founders, you no step back, you're just running on autopilot, but most of the time on the wrong script, right? Until you hit a wall. So that's the value as well that I'm hearing, just clarity. And for that, it needs a bit of distance, which you could do at the same time while working. So I'm very glad to hear that you turned out this way and you sound very much more serene. Although I know you run a startup and probably there are also things happening in the life, like between also your two homes now. But you sound very calm for someone who's running a startup.
Yeah, I wanted to also mention like a lot of the baggage that comes with this because again, I'm like a woman in technology before it was cool, right? Before Me Too, before all of that. So like have been through very challenging times in my professional career as part of my growth. I was an immigrant in London, like again, Eastern European immigrant before it was cool. So I always felt like people don't see me as belonging in these rooms. So when I was like, again, chief product officer of so-and-so, going to exclusive executive events, I would walk into the room and somebody would ask, oh, are you with the event team? Like they would just not see me as being like one of the executives. This happened multiple times. GDC this year, I was the only woman. By the way, it was a great retreat, but I go to the van to get on the van and people are looking at me like, if somebody literally asked me, oh,
Why
you're
you here?
coming with us? Yes. I was like, yeah, man, I'm getting on the van. So that's what I mean. You have these things where you constantly feel like you have to be smarter and you have to work harder and you have to have your wits about you in every possible moment and you cannot leave your guard down. And so basically at some point, so this fear hardens you a lot. And I am like that. I am very much like, okay, this is reality. There's no point. I'm not a victim here. I chose this life. I want to be one of these people. So I am going to do what I need to do. I'm going to work the hours, put in the time. I'm going to be smarter than these people, work harder, do what I have to do. Right. Because it's like, it's not fair, but it is what it is. There's no point in fighting reality. But it's very hard then when you've been in this mindset for literally 20 years to suddenly go, I'm going to say no to some things. I'm going to look after myself because the whole way of getting there, you've been just putting your identity to the side and things to the side and not your entire identity. My identity is also to be a high performer, to be an achiever, to be with the best people in the world. So you really amplify that part of your identity and then left to the side things like, I also need some emotional sustenance. I also need understanding. I also need to feel like there are people like me in the room. I also need to feel like I can make inside jokes with somebody about these people sometimes. You've left all those things to the side and just been one thing. And I was able to kind of be like, I've done all the work. I can now, let's say, dare to bring these things back in and to kind of set some boundaries and to tell people like, I'm going to do the work. I'm like a Swiss Army knife. I will figure it out. You leave me in the middle of a fire with nothing. I will learn to put out the fire. I will do what I can do. But you also have to give me some things so then I manage to survive. And it's only now that which I'm so sad to say, but it's only now, 20 years later, after doing coaching programs, after all these things, that I really feel more comfortable setting these things for myself and asking also not just for like, you should pay me, you should do this, you should do that, but more also like, these are things I don't want to work on, like more personal boundaries in a way.
Amazing. Boundaries. This is like the most concrete way of ensuring your sustainability. There's a phase of life where we have full of energy those first 20 years. I joined that club and then you have an exhaustion in a reality that there's just something not right. It's off. So again, super practical tools. Thank you for sharing on how to navigate that. I'm sure many women will relate, even if we don't always have a space to talk in public about this. But we know the reality of it when we are in private rooms. So just for the ones listening here, you're not alone. And for the men listening to this, have a sense, some empathy about the depth of experience that we have and we carry to just be in the room.
Yeah. I wanted to highlight this actually, because again, there's this like, it's not a women versus men, like the people who supported me the most to get here have been men because they were in charge and they were doing these things. So my greatest supporters and backers in my career have been men. But it's, also like my greatest challenges have also come from men. So if it wasn't for the supporters and for the men who believed in me and who did all these things and who sometimes took personal risk to promote me and to advance me instead of somebody else, I would have been here. So first of all, to those men, like, thank you. And to men like that, like, yes, please keep doing what you're doing. It's worth it. And so I think to men who don't know where they stand, like, it is worth doing these things. You are creating a space or a possibility to have a healthier environment, healthier teams, more people succeed. You are doing something that is probably much more impactful than you believe because it's so much more rare.
Yes. Yeah, it's very important to mention here. It's about awareness for everyone in the room. And yeah, but it's just very hard when you are not a woman yourself to know. But also creating, I want to highlight in the same view here, for women who have adopted so much the mask that they become the mask, to not also see the struggle that they have been through, like cut off, and also support of women who are a bit younger, less experienced, to come in the space, to not treat them with the lack of empathy, which also I have witnessed. So again, it's creating awareness here.
I feel like we're creating a new generation. So first of all, I wanted to mention, Joachim Achren, who posted publicly about his burnout. That was the first time where I had seen anything like that. It was so impactful for me. Some of the best advice I got as a founder was from him. The founders of Metica, like Phil and Pulley, absolutely fantastic, supported us all the way, always understanding this blend of performance and humanity and living this out in their own life. So I feel like there have been people who really, in this founder journey, I mean, not just in gaming, I've had supporters like this in gaming as well. But I also feel like with women, it was more common, like let's say 10 years ago, to have these very senior women who would see you as competition and like, there's only room for one woman and I am going to be that woman. Versus now I feel like we lift each other up a lot more. And I really believe in that as well. I also think the presence of women really supports men too. The environment is different when you have a balanced team. The environment is more inclusive. When I've had mixed teams that are truly diverse, both gender diverse and racially diverse and so on, I've always felt like the environment just automatically became very respectful and accepting of everybody because we were so different. And that also benefited the men in charge who may have been like, classical white man from like a good background, but they still had a better life in these teams.
Yes.
Than in other environments.
Exactly. But it's about the balance, right? We get better humanly when we have different people in the room. We are forced to act with empathy instead of like an echo chamber, which is desperately missing sometimes in some leadership rooms. It becomes really the repetition of the same and with many, many blind spots. So that's what it is about. And it's something to nurture. We're getting to the end of our conversation today, but so much more to discuss. It's quite interesting to discuss in that ways. Like I see Ioana here, the founder executive. And also I know you in Orin context, but we are different facets always. Is there something I didn't ask you, should have asked you like to share?
I think something that so this is very personal, but as a woman, you at some point consider your personal goals. Like, do I want to be a mother or not? Especially if you haven't done this earlier in your life and you're getting close to your 40s, you really feel like this imperative decision of like, kind of have to decide now or never. I think navigating this brings an extra layer of complexity. It did for me. I know it was very much like, this does take you out of your career and it does take you out of your life. There was a moment for me when I just decided like, hey, this is more important. Like, I love my career. Like, I've worked very hard on it. It's a big part of my identity. It's not my entire identity. So I think, again, like if I say it, it's just like at some point you just decide to do this and do it. So it sounds like very normal and there's like nothing insightful about that. But I think the process of getting there when it's never the right time is very challenging because at some point you have to say, this is absolutely the wrong time. And yet I'm still going to do this because this just has to take precedence. At some point I have to do this. It's never like if you're an executive, it's never the right time to go to the gym. You should go to the gym. You should it's never the right time to take some time off and kind of prioritize like somebody in your personal life who needs help. But you should do those things when the need arises. I think this is kind of the same, except of course the cost is a lot higher. So you have to be prepared. You have to be in a good place. You have to have good support systems. I think for me, I'm lucky to have these things and to be able to consider this seriously and just at some point go, okay, let's do this. But I think I always felt like I would push this as far as I can because it's not the right time and I'm working on my career and so on. And I wish this had been more embedded into, like, to give you an example, because I think it's not clear what I'm saying. I know a lot of men who have had kids because they have a wife to have the kids. So they could run a business and have 2 free kids. But if you're a woman, tough luck. You have to actually produce the kid and you have to do all these things. And everything changes. So I do wish we had better support systems for women to accommodate them to do these things, because I do think, I don't want to say you see it as a disadvantage, but to a certain degree, you feel like it can be used against you to do this. I don't think we're past that. And I think companies that support this, or even investors that support this and so on, are incredibly valuable. And I hope this will become more normal. We just need it. There's all these fantastic women sitting on the sidelines, able to do startups, not doing it because they don't know how they're going to be able to balance their personal life and their career and doing a startup and so on.
Yeah, and we have much more resources to make it happen, right? Support systems and, so capital. But it's, I think, in the conversation when you say we are welcoming, we want more women in leadership, it needs to reflect in the business design. And that's what is still catching up. It's like, yeah, women are welcome, but fit in the design of how a business is built on a man's lifestyle. So that reality accommodated for parenting, motherhood, it's not reflected yet. Whose responsibility should it be? Also an open question, but it's more, again, for awareness to take responsibility when you actually want to have a leadership that can sustain more women.
Yeah, it's ironic, by the way, you have people, I know Elon Musk is very controversial, but he has this obsession with kind of babies and there not being enough babies. I'm not sure if Elon Musk would fund women who wanted, like, if they were founders and they're like, well, I also want to have a baby, because that means, oh, you have to, then you're a founder who has to step away from the business for 6 months. That's crazy. If the founder steps away for 6 months, what happens, So I feel like there's a lot of, oh, we should do this more. This should happen. People should be able to do it. But without the actual follow through, it's like, you ideologically say that people should do this, but you're not actually supporting them to do this.
Yeah. It redefines completely new paradigms of business, even roles, but yeah. That's for conversation, designing new paradigms, new organizations. As I believe women will just solve it by building it themselves, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Ioana, for being here today and reflecting on that journey. So grateful to have you part of a journey with Rise and Play, that journey you're in, and who knows, next time we have a conversation 2-3 years from now, what will emerge, even more learning and wisdom. So thanks so much again.
Likewise, I think it's been very helpful. There's this expression like it's lonely at the top. I actually haven't felt lonely since I started this program. I felt understood. I felt like I have people around me. And it's not like I was lonely before, but again, it's a different degree of support. So lucky I ran into it at exactly the right time, that it happened exactly when I needed it. So yeah, very grateful for this as well. And hopefully we keep doing these over the years and people can see the journey and the effects of what happened.
Thank you, Ioana. Take care.